Are you a woman of faith or open-minded seeker, wanting to make a difference, but find yourself asking, how can I heal my emotions and overcome the hurt, pain, and regrets of my past? How can I break free from the medical matrix and heal my mind and body holistically? How can I lose weight without losing my joy? How can I live in this world without being consumed by it? How can I have more of God's blessings, miracles, and protection over my life? If you resonate with any of these questions, you are in the right place, my sister. Welcome to the Sharing the Bliss podcast, where we help women of faith soothe their souls, heal their bodies, and live their bliss in a time like this. Join me, Coach Carmen Abercrombie, certified holistic health coach, author, speaker, and founder of Sharing the Bliss, and my co-host, Coach Denise Beecham, the Wellness Diva, on this weekly joyful transformational journey. Because regardless of your current circumstances, your breakthrough begins today. Well, hello. Welcome to Sharing the Bliss podcast. I'm your host, Coach Carmen.
And I'm Coach Denise.
And this is episode number 5, which is part 3 of our Soul Detoxing series. Today's topic is how to make peace with your past and turning lemons into lemonade.
I believe that this particular episode will be pivotal for a lot of people, especially if they have some issues that they're dealing with that they've never really been able to let go of.
Absolutely, because you may ask yourself, well, how do I make peace with my past?
Yes.
How can I turn lemons into lemonade? But there's a secret that we're going to share with you today. It is called sow it as a seed. Yes, that's the exercise that we're going to be sharing today. Sow it as a seed and let go and sow. Because letting go is what's going to release whatever you're going through. And not only releasing it, but it's going to, in return, give you double for your trouble. It's going to give you peace from your pain. It's going to give you everything that you did not think that situation was going to give you, because God is going to take that weed and turn it into an awesome blessing for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, so let's get going. Sow it as a seed.
Yes.
I'm going to first talk about how this sow it as a seed exercise came to be part of the Soul Detox program and part of the 28-day Body and Soul Detox. Sow it as a seed is very near and dear to my heart because God gave me this exercise, which was something that He told me to do to actually heal and save my marriage. It was just amazing how the devil can come into a relationship that you know is anointed. It was sanctioned by God, and the next thing you know is things are happening and there's discord, you're not getting along, you can't see eye to eye, you know, you're trying to hear what the person's saying, but you're not hearing and they're not hearing you. And that happens in all relationships from time to time, or at least once. And that's what happened to me and my dear husband, who was my high school sweetheart. So we were together for many, many years when this happened. And I just could not understand why God was not supporting me in this situation. It seemed like I wasn't getting the help that I needed to have my husband see eye to eye with me. And I just didn't know what to do. But one day, God told me to sow it as a seed in prayer. And I was like, sow it as a seed. What does that mean? And I had seen someone, a minister on television, tell a story about her situation and how God told her to turn the negativity into a seed. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And I was just giving and making nice meals and doing extra things to show my appreciation and to show that I had no malice, no negativity in my heart towards the situation.
Right.
So I would do all of these things to show that I was sowing it as a seed, and he wasn't seeing it. It's like he didn't appreciate it, and that would make me mad. And I was like, wait a minute, God, this is a two-way street here. You're telling me what to do to show my love and my gratitude and to be this dutiful wife. And now he's not even appreciating it. You need to talk to him too, not just me. And God said, you just dug up your seed. And I was like, what is you got to dig another hole and put the seed back in there. And every time I was doing the right thing and I would get frustrated because it wasn't appreciated, God was like, you dug up the seed again. I have to put it back in. He says, in order for you to heal this situation, you're going to have to forget and forgive and to love unconditionally. Forget, forgive, and love unconditionally. And not be bogged down by what you see. You know, don't allow what's coming your way to affect you. You are going to continue to love the unlovely.
Okay.
I was like, okay, exactly. So I did. And guess what? I had a breakthrough. And my husband, all of a sudden, it's like the scales fell off of his eyes and he could see his shortcomings. And he was very apologetic, and we were able to heal our marriage. But not only did we heal our marriage, we healed our lives. And that's how God works. When he turns your weed into a seed, believe me, you're going to get more than what you lost. God is a God of abundance. Whenever he's going to give you something back, he even tells you in the word, he's going to give you double for your trouble. If you do your part, he's going to do more than what you could ever imagine. And that's what I love about Sow It as a Seed. It not only healed my marriage, because the enemy was all in it. The enemy was doing his best to break us up. And it would have been crazy and ridiculous. No one would ever believe that we would have had issues like this.
Right.
And it wasn't even anything that intense. At the time, it seemed that way. But that's how the enemy is. He makes things so much bigger than they are.
Yes, he does.
You know, and since then, when I went through my healing process and God gave me the 28-day body and soul detox, and let me say, when I was healing, one of the things that he had me do first, when I came home, I closed my business to heal my body from that blood disease. I had to shut everything down because I was so sick I couldn't really function. The first thing he said was, you have to deal with your soul issues. While you're changing your diet, you have to deal with your soul issues. And that's how the soul detox came to be. But that Sow It as a Seed, when he gave me that, I was like, yes, that's a big part of it. I was able to incorporate that in the 28-day body and soul detox portion. And I've been able to help, I don't know how many women and men through this process. The Sow It as a Seed is so powerful. Coach Shanice, what's your story that comes top of mind to you when it comes to sowing it as a seed?
Oh, okay. So I was married, living in New Jersey, and the marriage was on its way out.
You notice she had to put her phone down for
I
that.
put the phone down for this. I was going to put my glasses down too.
She put her phone and her glasses down, girl.
Glasses
And
down.
you know, we're using our phone because it has the 28-day body and soul detox book, and we're going through the soul detox in our phone so that we don't miss anything. That's why we're having our phones
Right.
handy. All right. It's going to be juicy.
So the marriage went bad, and I was preparing to move back to Staten Island. And on the day that I was moving, actual day that I was leaving, he was leaving out that morning to go to work. And, you know, we were saying our goodbyes, and he said, well, I'll say this, you won't be able to find an apartment because you don't make enough money and your credit is not all that great. And then he also turned and said, and you'll probably only have the car for about 6 months because it's got a lot of problems, because I had gotten the car in the divorce settlement.
Wow, he was throwing some doubt bombs.
Yeah, he was throwing a lot of them. And because I was literally emotionally spent, I was exhausted, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I was exhausted. And so those darts were able to really get in and sink in to have me literally believing that this wasn't going to happen. So, but I had a plan when I was leaving where I was going. I was going to stay with a friend of mine. And I stayed with this friend for about 6 months, maybe a little, give or take a month. And each time I went to go and try to find an apartment, I would get turned away. It was at the point where I went to this organization and they literally told me, before we can find you a place, you will have to literally be homeless. And I said, I am homeless. I don't have my own place. Just because I'm not on the street doesn't mean that I'm not homeless. But the way they saw it was, well, you can live with somebody, you can sleep on someone's couch. And I said, I'm a grown woman. I don't want to sleep on somebody's couch. I want my own, but they couldn't help me. So those things that he was saying kept coming back to me. And then, I was looking at apartments listings and the rent was so high. And so now I'm thinking the same thing. Oh my goodness, he's right. I'm not going to be able to afford an apartment. I'm not going to be able to find anywhere to live. And it was just running through my head over and over again. And eventually I ended up having to leave that friend's house because she was renovating her home. So, but I already knew this. So I have another friend who needed someone to help her out financially. So, and we're good friends. So I ended up moving there with her. And it's around that time that I was actually doing another detox. I was doing another detox and I was going through the soul detox portion of it. And I came across these exercises and I had done this before. I had done the soul detox before. So this was like maybe the fourth time, but for some reason I didn't connect that this would actually help with my situation that I was in now, but it actually did. So I was reading through it and it just hit me. Okay, you know what? You're going to have to do the soul detox and you're really going to have to sow this as a seed, because if you don't, everything that he said to you, you're going to believe it. And if you remember, by that time, I was having problems with the car too. Remember, like it was little things were coming up.
Yes, we had many conversations.
So there's something had to be done. And in the middle of doing that part of it, sow it as a seed, it came to me. You do not have to believe that. You don't have to believe that. You don't have to take that on. You can leave that with God and move on and just keep doing what you have to do. And then suddenly a voice came into my head and said, you also know how to bring your credit score up. You know how to do this. Why haven't you been doing it? But it seemed like as soon as I sowed what he was telling me as a seed, that's when the thought popped into my head.
Right.
Because now it's clear. I gave that up so that more positive thoughts could come into my head.
Yep.
You know how to get your credit score up. And so I started making steps to do that. And then it was time to take the car in to have it checked. And I was having some trepidation about that because I thought that the mileage on it was true and it wasn't. I found out that the mileage that was on it was a setting that had it wrong. And it literally had 100,000 miles less on it than I thought it was.
And that he thought it was.
That he thought it was. And here it is. What is it? 4 years later, I still have that car and it's running it runs so beautifully. It has very little issues with it as opposed to what he was telling me 6 months.
Yeah.
So I had to put all of this down. All of this that I'm telling you now, I put this down on paper and wrote it in the exercises and sowed it as a seed. And like you, sometimes I would dig it up. And I would catch myself like, no. Leave that where it is. We don't want to even think about bringing that up.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, because lots of times when there's a situation in a marriage where it's starting to crumble and it doesn't look like there's going to be any resolve, many times as women, the last thing we want to do is sow it as a seed, especially when we know that we weren't treated right and we know that we didn't deserve what we got. And that is when you really have to sow it as a seed. And I remember the conversations that we had, Coach Denise, during that time. And I was constantly in your ear having that opposite inspiration. Not the negative inspiration, but the positive inspiration. And knowing that it was all going to turn around for you. And that's so important to have someone or some ones, maybe a posse even, if that can encourage you and keep voicing the opposite of that negative. It's so easy to cling on to that. It's so easy to hold on and to let that take root in your mind. Remember, we were talking about the subconscious mind,
Right.
and how all these things take root, and we have to use our will to say, no, I am not going to accept that. That is a lie from the pit of hell. But the sowing it as a seed, when you see the situation and it's ugly and it's not right and it's scary and all of that, and you give it to God and say, God, I'm going to give this to you. I'm going to forgive the situation.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to forgive yourself.
Yes.
You have to forgive yourself if you've made some stupid decisions financially. We've all done that.
Yes.
Most of us have, like, why did I spend that $10,000 on that?
Oh,
I shouldn't have done it. And now I don't, have enough to do what I have to do.
Yes.
Whatever. Right? And you can ask God to forgive you, forgive the mistakes you made, your choices that you made that weren't right, the situation that you're in that you should not have put yourself in addition to forgiving that person or persons who have done things to you that was not right. I mean, even in the worst situations, I'm talking even someone who has taken the life of a family member, or, you may have been molested as a child or as an adult, you were raped by someone. I mean, I'm talking serious, hardcore stuff.
Yes.
That fits in this too. Because you have to let it go and give it to God. You're going to have to say, you know what? This is all in my soul. This is all in my heart. This is just tearing me apart. This is like eating me alive. I got to let it go. I have to say, even if you don't really believe it yet,
Right.
if you don't believe it yet, you have to say, I forgive that person. And I'm going to sow this as a seed, this situation as a seed to you, Lord. I'm going to let it go so that I don't even have to entertain it anymore as it was, because it's no longer that weed. I put it in the ground so it can become a fruit-bearing tree of righteousness.
Yes.
I'm trusting you, God, that you're going to take that seed, that weed seed, and turn it around. And that's when we get into the soul detox, sow it as a seed, because it's all about letting go and putting it in the ground. If you don't put it in the ground, beloved, it's not being sown. And if you keep digging it up, God can't turn it into a beautiful garden.
Right.
He can't heal it.
Right.
Because we keep digging it up. And sometimes it takes a while, like we said, both of us. We have that situation.
It takes a while to leave it there and let it root and produce. It takes a lot of discipline and definitely a lot of reframing our thoughts, which we talked about last week.
Yes.
And it takes time, and you really have to be mindful and use that wheel with the conscious and the subconscious, because when that thought pops in, you have to immediately reject it.
The mental feedback loop.
Yes, you have to immediately reject that thought and say, no, I'm not going to think about that anymore. I've already put that in the ground. I've sown it. I'm going to leave it there.
It is amazing how God turns things around when we let him. If we keep holding on to the regret, to the pain, to the anger, the only thing that's going to happen is that the enemy is going to come in. You're sowing it as a seed, and I've never said this before, but you're sowing it as a seed. Oh, I don't even want to say it. You're sowing it as a seed to the enemy. I know. I know. But the reason why I say that is this. I know that's hard. But the reason why I say that is because what happens when you don't let go? What happens when we don't forgive? What happens when we don't just decide that it's over in our hearts? You know what happens. Sickness happens. Stress happens. Anxiety happens. And as we were saying last week, we start to attract more mess. Mess happens. It may not even be related to that situation that you didn't sow, but other things, more problems start to come. You notice that if many times someone who has had something really negative happen to them, and they're constantly talking about it like they never let it go.
Right.
Maybe a person that did something to them. Generally speaking, those people have more issues. They seem to have a lot of stuff going on. I know you can think of some people like that, right?
Yeah, I can.
It's like, man, if you could just let that go, I think you're going to have more peace in your life. I think you're going to have more opportunities come. That's why I say you're sowing it to the enemy, because when you don't let God take that seed, it's still a seed. The Bible says that the entire earth is connected to the seed time and harvest principle, which means that everything is a seed. Everything we do is a seed. So even though you say that that was a long time ago, if you're holding on to it, you're holding on to a seed. And we know that we have two realms. We have the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. So that's why the word says, choose this day who you will serve. If you don't let go of that seed for God, you are letting it go for the enemy. And that's how powerful, and that's why this is so important. Deep.
That is deep.
I know, it gave me like
Goosebumps.
Yeah, because I didn't want to say it, but we got to be real.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100% with you, because I also know that if you don't let it go, you may move forward in your life, but you're going to move forward with bitterness, anger, anxiety, a closed mind, a closed heart. And so the
Closed
things
heart.
that you want to come towards you, like maybe
Another
marriage that's different from the one you had, you'll attract pretty much the same thing you already had, you know, and all of those, and the bitterness is just going to bring bitterness, because you're going to bring it to whoever you happen to be.
Wow.
It's like a cycle that you can't get out of.
Yes.
You're just going around and around. And I
Cycle.
know that when I did that, things happened. Because if you remember, I was traveling back and forth to New Jersey, because even though I moved to Staten Island, I still worked in New Jersey
Yeah.
at a low paying job. But I mean, I had to do something. But I was literally going broke, just going back and forth to work. And that left me kind of angry and bitter. I really was. And I couldn't stay in that mindset
No.
and expect to find the type of job that I wanted and where I wanted it. So I had to keep going back and forth. Okay, you know what? Here go another thing. Here we go. We're gonna have to sow this.
Yeah.
You know, I need to find a well-paying job. I can still remember the day I went on the interview, and the interview went so well that the person who I was speaking with, we were having a conversation similar to like what we're doing. We're just sitting there keying and ha ha ha, and it was a conversation. And when I walked out of there, the first thing that hit my head was, that job is mine. It's got my name all over it.
Well, you know, we can't have this conversation, because whenever we do, I always have to put my 2 cents in. I always have to put my 2 cents in and remind Coach Denise how initially she was saying to me, because we stay connected in this, and that's why I said you need to have a positive sister. She stayed connected to me in my dark days, and having that positivity helped to pull me out. Coach Denise, since I met you, my 2 sisters passed away, you know, and you were there for me. It was just natural for me to be there for you. Plus, God just made me see. I could see your future. I knew it was going to be amazing. I always did.
Yeah,
I always saw
Yes,
what
you
you did
did.
not see. And
That's
I
true.
remember when you did not see the job, because you really enjoyed the job you had helping the women. And
Yes,
you were
I
like,
did.
I like this job. I'm not going to be able to find a job like this on Staten Island. I was like, yes, you can. You can find a job like that, and you can find a better job.
I
And
remember.
yes, I was like, no, you
remember.
can find. You start confessing,
Yes,
confessing what you want, confessing what you want.
Yes.
And God, I mean, between the seeds you were sowing, just the person that you are, and letting go and sowing, and then that affirming, that's how that job came to pass.
I 100% agree, because I know if I had stayed where I was in the mindset that I was in, it never would have happened.
No.
I had to do a whole 360. And it's not easy. We know that it's not easy.
No, it's not.
But we do know that it can be done.
Yes.
And if we can do it, then anybody else listening to this podcast can do it.
Absolutely. And it really is controlling our flesh, because our flesh wants to be angry. Our flesh wants to fight back. You know, there's a lot of people who are 6 feet underground because of that. You know, because we live in a world where you feel that way and the other person feels that way, and sometimes something happens. We have to learn how to live in peace and let things go. Coach Nice, why don't we go into exercise number 3, which is let go and sow?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to read this because
Yes.
I think this is interesting.
Yes. Thank you.
So the exercise is actually calling you to uproot the weeds and sow them as a seed. Release each unresolved soul issue and sow it as a seed. Trust God because He will make it right no matter how awful the circumstance.
Yes.
If you sow it as a seed. He promises to give you beauty for ashes. So it's time to get the chip off your shoulder, lose the victim mentality, and ditch the martyr's badge of honor, because God is your vindicator and you're about to get double for your trouble. And you can see that in Isaiah 61 verses 1 through 3.
Yes. You can flush out a lot of stuff because we start with searching for the weeds.
Yes.
Because lots of times we're not even aware of the weeds because we don't think of that as a weed. It's just, you know, something that's happened in our life,
Right.
And you know, that's it. But the reality is it is a weed. And just imagine if your mind was full of weeds. It's not good, right?
No.
Remember we were talking about a beautiful garden in our soul that's flourishing, and the ecosystem is just healing and lush and lovely.
But the weeds choke the life out of the growth. They literally choke it. So you definitely want to be rid of those.
Amen. What we have our clients do is to go down a list and check off any of the weeds that relate to. So that's step 1.
Right. Step 2 is you will uproot the weeds. So you will be returning to the beginning of the list and write a brief explanation of each issue that pertains to you.
Yeah. So for you, what you would do is just make a list of the things in your life that you're still holding on to. Negative experiences, negative situations that you haven't really let go. You haven't brought to the altar and left it there. You know, you haven't given it to Jesus. You keep picking it up and then back and forth, and
Right.
he can't work with that, and the angels can't support you.
Right.
You know, they're very intentional, and you have to be we have to be intentional
Right.
once we make a decision like that, right?
Right.
So so make a list, and then once you make that list, then you're going to write a statement to God for each thing that's on the list. And you're going to say, Father, I sow this, whatever it is, as a seed in faith, expecting a blessed harvest.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it
Father,
is.
I sow this, whatever it is, as a seed in faith, expecting a blessed harvest.
Yes.
And then we have a list of all the different things. And they include everything from physical abuse to
Unresolved issues of sexual abuse, unresolved issues of emotional abuse, unresolved abandonment issues,
yes,
unresolved feelings about something lost or stolen from you, and so on. And there may even be some that you may have to add for yourself that you may not see here. While you're making your list, you can write it down. I think that this is very helpful because it actually encourages you to search
your heart
to see exactly what's going on. Because sometimes we're feeling a certain kind of way, whether it's bitter, angry, sad, or what have you. And sometimes we don't even realize where it's coming from, especially if it was from way back. So this is actually a way where you can think about, like, it will literally cause you to think. And maybe remember certain things. And there's no need to be fearful about it if it does come up, because you're leaving it somewhere where it can only return a blessing.
Exactly. And I'm going to go back to where I had written unresolved feelings about something lost. Like if you lost something. I lost things that I really regret, and I had to let go. When I lost my wedding band, it was kind of devastating. But I had to sow it as a seed after a while because it was a very unique ring with the diamonds around the flowers. You know, it's not something you see that often. But I sowed it as a seed, and we searched and we found a ring that I liked even more, which is amazing. It can be anything, even if it's a tangible thing that may not mean a lot to other people, but it's very important, special to you. Or if someone stole from you. We've all have experienced at least once in our lives. And today, with all of these thefts that are going on the internet and identification thefts and things like that, even if someone came into your house and robbed you, whatever it is, sow that as a seed.
Yes.
Sow it as a seed, and God will return and give you double for your trouble and return 7 times what the devil stole from you. You know, it's very important. Also, the feelings that you have about a person who stole from you.
Yes.
Like, you know how that can be.
Yes.
I'll cut you now. You're upset with that. Even if it's a family member.
Yes.
So then, also, unresolved issues with people who have never forgiven you. Okay? So that's something that you may not think about. But there are people who are just like mad at you. And there's nothing you can do to convince them not to be mad. It's something that it's an innocent situation. You really had nothing to do with it. For some reason, the enemy got in their mind and made them think that you did something to them.
Yes.
And they don't want to talk to you. You know, you can sow that as a seed as well. It's amazing. Get into your heart and really allow God to show you, because you want to clean all that stuff out.
Yes.
Now, think about this. Grief and loss. Loss of a loved one or loved ones. You don't think about sowing that as a seed, but you can. You can sow the loss of a loved one as a seed so that God can heal your heart.
Yes.
And bring joy back into your life. What else we have here, Coach Shanice?
I like this one. It says, sow your love for them in your heart towards your future. I like that. I really, really like that.
Amen. And unhealthy connections.
Yeah, places you have an unhealthy connection to.
And that, you know, unhealthy connections to a certain place. It's funny, we can be addicted to all kinds of things. Not just food, not just drugs, not just alcohol. We can become addicted to being drawn to a particular place.
Person, place, or thing.
Did you just make up that?
No. Remember, the noun describes a person, place, or thing.
Yes.
Been there, done that.
And so these can just jog your memory. You know, disappointments in others. You may be disappointed in your child because they decided to marry someone that you really didn't want to marry, or got pregnant, or whatever it is. You know, you're disappointed.
Right.
That spirit of disappointment, it is a spirit. And the spirit of disappointment is very destructive. That's something you have to let go. You have to let go and forgive your child or whoever you're disappointed with, because your husband may be disappointed with him, because they can feel that in their soul.
Right.
They can feel the disappointment you have with them, and it's hurtful. And there's that discord and disconnection. So that's a really important one as well. What else we got here? Tangible
objects from your past that are no longer supporting your life.
Oh,
that's interesting.
Start thinking about the clothes.
You know, when you have to give up certain things that you used to wear and you can't wear anymore. I've held on to things in my closet for so long, knowing that I would never put it on again. But couldn't
really?
Couldn't get
oh my
past
gosh!
Couldn't let it go.
Well, at least I think I'm gonna wear it again. But I have stuff. I mean, I'm talking 30 years. Okay, 30 years I have. But I keep my stuff. We keep our things well, right?
Yeah, I do.
I keep my things really well, and I like them. But sometimes I'm like, how can I work this into 2024?
Yeah, but it goes beyond them. We're making light. But we know it goes beyond that, you know, to the point where there are just things that are very tangible that you just refuse to let go of.
Yep.
and that could be anything. A job that's no longer supporting your life, a car that keeps breaking down, but you love this car so much that you're going to keep it no matter what, but you're constantly putting more and more and more money into it, and it's breaking down, but you don't want to give it up. It could be anything.
It can be anything. And here's the thing. Sowing it as a seed, when you have a material thing that you don't really need because you have 3 of them, sowing it as a seed is also sowing it to someone else, giving it to someone else who needs it more than you. When you do that, you are really blessing the person as you bless yourself. You're releasing it, and whenever you let something out of your hand is open for something else to come back in. So sowing, sometimes you have to go through your house and start sowing. I did that. I had like boxes of things that I gave to a church who was having a fair. And I mean, some of the things I could have kept, but I'm like, you don't need this. Give it. And even some of the things you do need, sometimes you got to give up stuff you do want.
Yes.
That you don't want to let go of because you want something more than you want that. If you need something more than you need that, sow it as a seed. There's nothing wrong with giving. Actually, it's nothing but good about giving. You can't beat God giving, no matter how you try. Amen. Right. So that's part of sowing it as a seed too. So we're going to just quickly talk about protecting the seed. And basically protecting the seed, we can even talk about this because we've taught it so many times, Coach Denise.
Yeah.
I don't even think we need to go through the reading.
We don't.
Yeah. The sowing it as a seed and then protecting the seed. Protecting the seed is very similar to what we were saying about digging it back up again, and allowing other people to dig it back up.
Right.
What do you have to say about that?
That's the second part of it.
Yes.
There's the other side of that where you're not digging it up, but there are other people in your life who are still there. For instance, they still want to talk about it and they love to discuss it with you because usually in the past, the conversations between you is back and forth, back. Oh yeah, and you know this, and oh yeah, and you remember, and how in the world is he gonna, and what, and so you never let it go.
Right.
So when you decide that you're going to protect that seed, so now what you have to do is you'll have to put a stop to those conversations. And that can be a little difficult because the person or persons who would bring those subjects up to you are expecting you to go in
like you always did
and discuss it. So now you're going to respond to that in a completely different manner.
Yep.
And you may say something like, I know that we've always talked about this in the past, but right now I decided that I was going to leave that up to God, and I'm just making the decision not to discuss it no more.
Yes.
And you're going to come across resistance, and they're going to be confused, like, why doesn't she want to talk about this anymore? We always talked about this. And you may even come across a little bit of hostility, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but it will be like you'll get talked about. Oh, she's acting like she doesn't want to talk about this no more. Like she's too good to talk about this anymore. And you'll have to stand firm, develop that thick skin and tell them over and over again. And if they still continue to bring it up, can we change the subject? Can we talk about something else?
Or you change the subject without even saying anything.
Yes.
Just once you continue to change the subject on something, you know how we are, like we're a little taken aback when somebody does that, but we get it. We know that they don't want to talk about it anymore. And then we just cease.
Right. And then just don't talk about it anymore.
Don't talk about it anymore. Absolutely.
You can't have a one-sided conversation.
Yes. Especially when that seed is fresh.
Yes.
In the ground. It's tender. Just like you put any type of seed plant in the ground. It has to take root first. It has to get rooted and grounded. We are fruit-bearing trees, and we have to be rooted and grounded in God, right? So everything that is about us, our seed has to be rooted and grounded in God too, because the soweth the word. When we talk about that scripture, it's about the thorns that choke the word. It's about the birds that come and try to steal the word. Same thing with the seed. They're going to come and steal the seed. And you're going to have to go like this to keep those varmints and birds and everything away from your seed, because you said, I am going to forgive and I'm going to let God heal this thing, and I am going to keep it in the ground until it grows and takes root and transforms my life.
And I'm listening to something that you just said. You said the seed is tender. Mm-hmm. The seed is also tempting. It's tender and it's tempting. So it can easily be uprooted.
Wow. Yeah.
So that means you really have to push that seed in further so that it can take root. And that means really being mindful of allowing others or yourself to dig that seed up before it can take root, because they are tempting. You're tempted to either pull it up to see if anything happened. You know, when you plant something, like, why is this thing not growing anything? So you want to dig it up and say, let me see if it opened up at least.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to resist that. That's something that has to be resisted because the seed is tender and tempting.
I love that. I may have to put that in the book.
I have to write that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to add that. That's good, Coach Shanice. Amen. So I hope you were blessed by this episode, Sow It as a Seed and Let Go and Sow, which is all about how to make peace with your past and turning your lemons into lemonade, right? We were super excited to share this with you, and we want to remind you to grab the freebie that goes with this series. It is my Color Seed Vibrational Meditation. And this is going to support you in reframing your mind and really causing that seed to manifest quicker. This is a beautiful meditation. It's several pages. It's all about color and what they represent. And you're going to love it. So you definitely want to make sure that you click the link below on the right of this podcast. All right. So, Coach Shanice,
Yes.
another wonderful episode. We look
Yes.
forward to seeing them next week.
Next week.
Yes, when we go into our fourth and final part of the Soul Detoxing series. And you don't want to miss it, because I want you to put all these pieces together and go on and detox your soul. Amen.
Yes.
And join the next 28-day Body and Soul Detox. We're just finishing up this one. Next week we completely close it out. So we're going to be opening enrollment for the next detox, and we want you to be in it. All right. Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Talk to you next week.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Bye-bye. I hope you were blessed by this episode. If so, please be a blessing by liking and subscribing so that we can reach more sisters like you. Be sure to click the link in the show notes to download this episode's juicy free resource. And let's stay connected. Join our Sacred Self-Care Sisterhood Facebook group with daily inspiration for your body and soul, designed to awaken the kingdom heiress you truly are. Like our business page, where you can join me live for weekly food demos, self-care tips, and emotional healing support. Visit the website for a complete list of our programs and support tools. Beloved, life doesn't get better by simply praying. It gets better by receiving the support you need to get what you've been praying for. Set up your complimentary health and wellness support call by simply filling out my health and wellness assessment form and scheduling your call. See all details in the show notes below. And remember, you can soothe your soul, heal your body, and live your bliss in a time like this.